Shiny Pokemon. Despite being functionally the same as any other Pokemon, some people are obsessed with them and will go to great lengths to find them.
Oh! Shiny Sandler!
Oh, no way! No! Hey, let's go!
They're a status symbol, representing either your dedication to hunting them or your luck in finding one by chance. 4 years ago, I made a list where I worked out the shiny odds for every single Pokemon, starting with the highest chance of finding a shiny and working my way all the way down to the absolute hardest hunts in the series. Then a year later, I revisited that video to account for the release of Scarlet and Violet, which added both brand new Pokemon and new ways of finding shinies. And now, since the release of Legends EA and the Mega Dimension DLC, I've had a lot of comments asking for a third update on this topic. And seeing how Winds and Waves isn't coming out until next year, I suppose it's going to be a while before we see any crazy new shiny hunting methods, so I might as well give it a shot. But there's also another reason that I wanted to redo this list. In the original video, the idea was to work out the rarest shiny of all time, assuming that you had access to every single game and chose the methods with the best odds for each species. But unless you're a complete Pokemon maniac like I am, you might not have access to all of the shiny hunting methods found in older games, and methods like SOS chaining and Gen 2 breeding accounted for many species on the easier end of the tier list. So if you're new to shiny hunting and wanted to use that list to decide on a shiny hunt, it might not be a very helpful resource. And now with the release of Legends EA, nearly every Pokemon can be encountered in at least one game on the Switch, meaning that with only a few exceptions, anything can be shiny hunted without needing an older console. So for this version of the list, I'm starting from scratch, and only covering the shiny hunts that you can do right now on the Nintendo Switch. Also, just as I was about to start recording this script, they announced that Pokemon Bank is officially shutting down in February next year, so I guess this is also another reason to make this video. And for those of you that haven't seen the previous lists, here are some of the ground rules for how I'm working this out. Pokemon will be sorted into tiers by method, using the highest chance per encounter of being shiny. This isn't necessarily going to be the most optimal method of hunting these Pokemon, just a method that has the highest rate of shinies per encounter. And if you can find a Pokemon that isn't fully evolved, I'll also include its evolutions, just as long as it's possible to evolve it. This will also apply for cross-generation evolutions and some Pokemon that can evolve into different regional forms in different games. For example, you can't catch Wild Annihilape in Legends EA, but you can always catch a Mankey and evolve it, or even transfer one you caught in Let's Go Pikachu. Obviously, there are a lot of extra factors that can make a shiny hunt harder, like hunting for a specific personality mark or an alpha, but for the sake of this list, I'm going to assume that you're hunting for a shiny by any means necessary. For that reason, I'm also going to calculate every method with the shiny charm and any other shiny boosts where applicable. And finally, I also won't be counting Pokemon Go if I can avoid it. The availability of certain Pokemon and the rate at which shinies can be found is highly variable, and while I could find all the cases where Pokemon have had increased shiny odds through raids, community days and other such events, that information is useless for anyone actually wanting to hunt for them, since all of those events have already ended. I will make a few exceptions to talk about Pokemon that are only available through Go, but otherwise it won't be considered for this list. For the same reason, I also won't be covering the boosted shiny outbreaks from Scarlet and Violet or the wild area events from Sword and Shield, since those were only available for limited time periods. With that out of the way, let's get right into the list, and as always, we'll start with the exceptions. Here we have all of the Pokemon that have never been obtainable as shinies. This list has gotten smaller since last time thanks to event distributions for several Paldean shinies, as well as the ability to hunt Gimmighoul in ZA, but there are still many shiny Pokemon that remain fully unobtainable. Speaking of event distributions, I also have a category for Pokemon that have only been shiny from events, as well as Pokemon that could be shiny hunted before, but only in games prior to Generation 8. Whatever the reason, all the shinies seen here are currently not obtainable through normal shiny hunting methods on the Switch. The Galarian forms of Articuno, Zapdos and Moltres can be shiny hunted in Pokemon Go at any time using Daily Incense, but only for 15 minutes per day and with a very low encounter rate. Meltan and roaming Gimmighoul can also be spawned with their own unique incense items, but their shinies are unobtainable by default, and are only enabled during certain events. While they can't be shiny hunted on the Switch, I think it's worth mentioning that Type Null can be hunted in all of the Alola games, and Poipole can be hunted in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And when Bank goes offline in February, these shinies can no longer be transferred. The same goes for Shiny Celebi if you have Crystal downloaded for the 3DS Virtual Console, so if you can, it might be worth shiny hunting these before it's too late. Speaking of Pokemon that are only available through Pokemon Bank, both Ash Greninja and the Pokeball pattern of Vivillon were never distributed as shinies, but even their normal colour forms haven't been made available at any point on the Switch. You can still get Battle Bond Greninja if you have the demo version of Sun and Moon, but as of Generation 9 it can no longer transform into Ash Greninja. There's also the weird case of the Hat Pikachus, 8 unique forms of Pikachu that were given out in Generation 7 and 8 as mystery gifts, but the partner cap can still be obtained in Ultra Sun and Moon by scanning a QR code. And due to a coding bug, this gift has a chance to be shiny, even though it was never given a different shiny model. Before we get into the actual shiny hunts, we also have to look at Pokemon that are the opposite of shiny locked, and are actually guaranteed to always be shiny. These special encounters are few and far between, and some require a lot of extra work to get them, but they are technically a 1 out of 1 chance of being shiny, and therefore the best possible rate per encounter. The 2 easiest Pokemon in this tier are the shiny Ponyta in Legends Arceus and the shiny Mareep in Legends EA. Both of these encounters are tied to their own side quests that basically involve nothing more than talking to the right NPC and then going to the right location and finding the shiny waiting for you. Funnily enough, every Mareep in Zone 1 is actually shiny locked until you complete this side quest, presumably because it might cause confusion if a random shiny spawned in while you're looking for the scripted one. There's also 1 free shiny to be found in each of the DLCs for Scarlet and Violet. If you can clear the hardest difficulty in Ogre Ousting, you'll be rewarded with a shiny Munchlax for your troubles. This Munchlax is also guaranteed to be the largest size possible and comes with the crafty personality mark, but you'll definitely need a few friends if you want a chance at clearing hard mode. Meanwhile, over in Blueberry Academy, the second shiny can be traded to you by a special NPC. After beating the main story, you can invite gym leaders, teachers, and other notable trainers to the League Club for a battle by spending BP. If you call them up and interact with them on 3 separate occasions, they'll then offer to trade you one of their Pokemon, which also comes with a partner ribbon title to display their unique origin. After making 10 of these trades, you can invite Serrano, the Blueberry Academy director. Beat him in a battle and he will immediately offer to trade you his Blitzel, which, as you might expect, is a fitting shade of blue. And perhaps the biggest change since the last time I did this video, Pokemon Home began offering shiny Pokemon as an incentive for completing your Pokédex in different games. All of these rewards are either Pokemon that were previously shiny locked or were only obtainable through very limited means. Completing the Scarlet and Violet Pokédex gives shiny Meloetta, Brilliant Diamond and Shiny Pearl gives shiny Manaphy, Legends Arceus gives shiny Enamorus, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee gives shiny Meltan, Sword and Shield gives shiny Keldeo, and Legends EA gives shiny Volcanion. They've also announced that completing the dex in Fire Red and Leaf Green will give you a Celebi, although it's not going to be a shiny one. The catch though is that you have to complete the Pokédex using only Pokemon that originated from those games, and you need to deposit and register all of them individually within Home. A Milotic you catch in Sword and Shield won't count for the ZA dex, and if you catch and evolve a Charmander into Charizard, depositing it into Home will only register Charizard and not its pre-evolved forms. This can make filling the gaps in your dex a bit tedious if you aren't already prepared with a full living dex, but this is the only way to get most of these shinies right now. That being said, they did announce that for Fire Red and Leaf Green, they'll be reading the data from your in-game Pokédex instead of requiring each Pokemon to be deposited, so maybe this will be retroactively added for previous games at some point in future. It's also worth noting that Meltan is only able to evolve in Pokemon Go, so while you can get shiny Meltan for completing the Let's Go Pokédex, shiny Melmetal is still unobtainable outside of Go. Of course, these encounters are the outliers. In most cases, shiny Pokemon are considerably rare, and even with the most effective shiny hunting methods, you can expect to see hundreds or even thousands of encounters before finding a shiny. Shiny hunting is a matter of both patience and persistence, and if you expect to immediately find a shiny as soon as you start hunting, you're only going to be disappointed. Well, except for this one method. Yes, almost every single species in Legends EA technically has a maximum shiny rate of 100%, with a few conditions. As part of the Mega Dimension DLC, you have to make donuts to enter Hyperspace Lumios, and those donuts will apply unique modifiers while you're there. By making donuts with a high sweetness flavour, you can get powers that modify your encounters, such as changing their average size, increasing the chance of alphas, and of course, improving the shiny odds. When combined with the Shiny Charm, Sparkling Power 3 puts your shiny odds at 1 in 586, but this level of Sparkling Power also comes with a bonus effect. The first time the game spawns a Pokemon of that type, it is guaranteed to be a shiny. This is by far the most effective shiny rate boost that has ever existed, but there are still a few hoops you have to jump through to get it. There is no guaranteed recipe for a Sparkling 3 donut, and you also need it to match the type of your target, so searching for the perfect donut can quickly burn through your supply of Hyperspace Berries, especially if you also want other boosts like the increased Alpha chance. You also need to find a wormhole with the right Pokemon inside it. This isn't too tricky with bench resetting, but it can take a lot longer if it's a Pokemon only found in special scans, like Gimmighoul or Rotom, and most wormholes contain multiple different species, so your guaranteed shiny spawn might not be the one you're after. This can easily be exploited when hunting dual-type Pokemon though. As a demonstration, this Water-type wormhole has 2 Pokemon lines, Starmie and Greninja. If I used a Water-type Sparkling Power, either one could be the shiny, but Greninja is the only Dark-type here. So by using a level 3 Dark-type Sparkling Power, the guaranteed shiny has to be Greninja. And of course, the same would be true for Starmie if I used a Psychic-type donut. This does require the extra setup of finding a wormhole where your target is the only Pokemon to have a certain type, but the results speak for themselves. You can also use your backup save to recover your berries when looking for a good donut, and to reroll the spawn locations inside of hyperspace. But even without the guaranteed shiny spawn, I would still say that hunting in hyperspace is currently one of the fastest and most reliable methods of shiny hunting. The 1 in 586 odds, combined with fast overworld encounters, means you should be able to find any target that you want with relative ease. Next up is the PokeRadar. For some reason, the Shiny Charm in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl doesn't actually work for any encounter methods other than hatching eggs. But even without it, the PokeRadar can bring your shiny odds up to an impressive 1 in 99. The only downside is you need to build up a chain of 40 consecutive encounters first with the radar, and even if you know the most optimal strategies, there's no way to completely prevent the chain from breaking, and some radar hunts are also more difficult than others due to low encounter rates or requiring a swarm to be present. If you want to know more about hunting with the radar, I'd recommend checking out Sir Toasty Toes, a friend of the channel who's a lot better at using the PokeRadar than I am. Even including previous generations, this method is one of the highest shiny rates per encounter, but I wouldn't exactly call it the easiest or the fastest. The same could also be said for the Dynamax lair in the Crown Tundra. Dynamax Adventures involve playing with up to 3 other people in a series of random Dynamax battles using rented Pokemon. With the Shiny Charm, each encounter has a flat 1 in 100 shiny rate, including the legendaries, making this a pretty popular hunting method, especially since this is the only way to shiny hunt Zygarde and several of the legendaries from Alola. But while the shiny rate might be high, the trade-off is that the encounters are slow. Completing a full Dynamax adventure can take between 10 to 15 minutes depending on whether you're doing them alone or with friends, meaning you're only seeing an average of 16 to 24 encounters an hour, or only 4 to 6 legendaries. Unfortunately, there are not many other ways to shiny hunt for legendaries on the Switch. Every legendary in Scarlet and Violet and Legends Arceus is shiny locked, as well as most of the legendaries in ZA. You also have little control over the 3 Pokemon you encounter aside from the legendary, as the layout is randomized on every run. But in my opinion, the chance of finding a random shiny in the Dynamax lair is more like an added bonus to keep you engaged while you're hunting for the legendary. Swarms and mass outbreaks have been a feature in several generations of games, but Legends Arceus was the first time they came with a boosted shiny chance. With the Shiny Charm and a maximized research rank, encounters in a mass outbreak have a 1 in 128 chance of being shiny. These outbreaks aren't to be confused with massive mass outbreaks though, which have a much lower shiny rate of 1 in 216, but the trade-off is that these outbreaks make it easier to find alphas and evolved forms. While most species can appear in both kinds of outbreaks, there are 5 evolution lines that only appear in massive mass outbreaks, those being Spiritomb, Unknown, Cyndaquil, Oshawott, and Rowlet. This next method is one that I didn't mention in my previous 2 versions of this list, and I received many comments telling me that I forgot about it. By doing consecutive catches of the same species in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, you can increase your shiny chance to a rate of 1 in 273 when combined with the Shiny Charm and Allure. But there is a reason that I didn't mention it before. In Gold, Silver and Crystal, there's a method of egg breeding that allows you to hatch almost any Pokemon with a shiny rate of 1 in 64. And since the only wild Pokemon in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are ones from the Kanto region, that meant that there was nothing here that couldn't already be hatched with better odds in Generation 2, which is why Let's Go Chains didn't make the list. But since we're only looking at methods on the Switch this time, there are a few Pokemon that now have their best encounter odds with catch combos. These are all the remainders that can't be found in Asui, Lumiose, the Dynamax lair, or from radar chaining in Sinnoh. The shiny odds in this method are pretty good, but there is a pretty big misconception on how it works. The most common advice given for this method is to build up a catch combo of 31 to maximise the shiny boost, and then start running in and out of an area to force more Pokemon to spawn in. But the boosted 1 in 273 shiny rate only applies to the next Pokemon that spawns in after you catch something. Reloading an area like this with the Charm and Allure is still a decent way of hunting, but you need to keep catching Pokemon to benefit from the full shiny boost. Without it, your shiny odds are only reaching 1 in 1024. Our next method takes us back to the Galar region. In Sword and Shield, Pokemon found in the overworld or in fishing spots sometimes appear with a glowing yellow aura. These are called Brilliant Pokemon. They have a few perfect IVs, a random egg move, and come with a higher chance of being shiny. Both the shiny chance and the appearance rate of Brilliant Pokemon is increased by the number of times you catch or defeat that specific Pokemon. After 500 encounters, the chance for a Brilliant Pokemon to be shiny is 9 times higher than normal, or 1 in 456 with the Shiny Charm. This was actually one of the harder parts of the list of research, as I had to work out which Pokemon actually appeared in the overworld and which ones were only found as random grass encounters. For example, some Galarian Pokemon like Sizzlipede and Ponyta only appear as random encounters or in raid dens, meaning they can't benefit from the Brilliant Shiny chance. There's also an important distinction between overworld encounters and Wanderers. Wanderers are a unique type of Pokemon encounter that can always be found in specific parts of the region, but they're unable to appear with a Brilliant Aura. This sounds like a good method of hunting on paper, but Brilliant Pokemon only have a maximum 3% chance to spawn in, so in practice it only slightly boosts your average shiny rate while hunting wild encounters. But if you happen to see a Brilliant Pokemon in the wild, it's worth checking it out just in case. Even if it's not shiny, you'll still get a few watts for defeating it. It's also worth noting that Sinistea in this instance can be found as an antique form, whereas the Poltegeist and the Dynamax layer is always going to be phony. This next section is going to cover two methods, one of the most recent and one of the oldest ways of shiny hunting, as they both have the same shiny odds of 1 in 512, Paldea and Outbreak hunting and the Masuda method. For those that aren't familiar, the Masuda method is when you breed two Pokemon that come from different language games, which gives the eggs a higher chance of being shiny. This method was revealed by Junichi Masuda, and was added to encourage using the new Wi-Fi trading feature in Diamond and Pearl. While both these methods have the same shiny odds, I decided to put Outbreaks first, since it is undoubtedly the faster of the two. To maximise your shiny odds from an Outbreak, you need to first knock out 60 Pokemon and then use a sparkling level 3 sandwich. Since shinies in Scarlet and Violet are visible in the overworld and can be quickly despawned, you can very easily check several hundred Pokemon before your sandwich power runs out. Meanwhile, egg hatching is a much slower method. Even with Flame Body or Magma Armor to reduce the number of steps needed per egg, you still have to watch the hatching animation for every encounter, as well as making frequent stops to collect new eggs and add them into your party. Almost all of the Pokemon in the Outbreak tier can also be hunted by the Masuda method, so I also thought that it would be more useful to show which Pokemon can't be hunted through Outbreaks. I say almost all the Pokemon because there is actually one exception, or should I say, Eggception. When it comes to breeding, Pokemon with regional forms will typically hatch into whatever form is native to where they are, so in Paldea, Wooper will hatch into their Paldean form, even if their parent is a Quagsire from Johto. The same works in reverse when a regional parent is outside of their native region, so a Lowland Muck, for example, will instead produce eggs that hatch into the regular form of Grimer. This can be bypassed if the parent is holding an Everstone, allowing you to breed for both a Alolan Grimer and regular Wooper. But there's no such thing as an Alolan Execute. Regular Execute only evolves into a Alolan Exeggutor in the Alola region, but there's no way to send an Execute back to Generation 7, and the only way to get Alolan Exeggutor in the Switch games is by finding one that's already evolved. There are NPCs who can swap regular Exeggutor for Alolan ones in Let's Go and Galar, and these repeatable traits do have a chance to be shiny, but Alolan Exeggutor also appears in the Terrarium's coastal biome, allowing you to more easily hunt them through Outbreaks. Alolan Marowak also has the same stipulation, as it can't be evolved from a regular Cubone anymore, but you can also find those in Hyperspace and the Dynamax lair. There is also one extra caveat when it comes to forms. While Vivillon can be hunted in Hyperspace Lumiose, the only pattern that can be found there is the Meadow pattern. If you want to shiny hunt for a different form, you would need to do it in Scarlet and Violet, as you can change their regional pattern for the day by sending postcards from Pokemon Go. Speaking of eggs and sandwiches, let's take another look at the Dougnuts. You might be wondering why we're back to Hyperspace, since I already told you that basically everything here has a 100% shiny rate. Well, that's because there are a few special exceptions. After beating the main DLC story, 5 legendary Pokemon can be found in Hyperspace by doing special scans, which surprisingly weren't shiny locked. These are Latios, Latias, Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion. And while they are affected by Sparkling Power Dougnuts, each one is out of spawn range from the entrance, and these wormholes are also filled with multiple Pokemon that share both of their types, meaning there's no way to make the legendary your forced shiny encounter. Latios and Latias have a 1% shiny rate in the Dynamax lair, but Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion can't be encountered during Dynamax Adventures, and are instead found in the wild in the Crown Tundra. As a side note, even if I didn't count the guaranteed shiny spawn as its own tier, the only other Pokemon here would have been Gimmighoul and Goldengo, as they can't be shiny hunted with Outbreaks or the Masuda method. In the same vein, the Paradox Pokemon are also the only Pokemon in Paldea that can't appear in Outbreaks aside from Legendaries, the starters, and Gimmighoul, but they do still benefit from the boosted sandwich odds, putting their best shiny odds at 1 in 683. This video would be significantly longer if I tried to work out how difficult it is to hunt every individual Pokemon within each tier. But for this part, I want to draw attention to the fact that Roaring Moon is significantly harder to shiny hunt than any of the other Paradoxes. Compared to the other Pokemon in Area 0, the Paradoxes often have a lower probability weight, an internal value that determines how likely the game is to spawn that Pokemon. But with level 3 encounter power, the game will always prioritise spawning that type of Pokemon if it can, and since every Paradox Pokemon is dual typed, the right sandwich can often isolate them as the only possible spawn within certain areas. The problem is that Roaring Moon is a Dark and Dragon type, and everywhere that it can spawn in Scarlet is shared with Zweilous, Gabite, and Brute Bonnet. On top of that, Roaring Moon has the lowest probability weight of any Pokemon in Area 0. What this means is that when the game is forced to spawn only Dark or Dragon types, it will still prioritise the other Pokemon over Roaring Moon, and by a significant margin. By comparison, Violet's counterpart to Roaring Moon is Iron Valiant, and despite having the exact same spawning weight, it is the only Fairy type in Violet version that spawns in the Area 0 underground, meaning it has a 100% spawn rate with a Fairy Power sandwich. And that's it for the method hunting options. Aside from doing regular wild encounters with the Shiny Charm, I think the only method on the Switch that didn't make this list is the Diglett boost in the Sinnoh Grand Underground. After running into 40 Digletts, there's a period of 4 minutes where all wild Pokemon in the underground have a doubled shiny chance. Although, since the shiny charm only works on eggs in this game, that only makes the shiny chance 1 in 2048. And of course, all the Pokemon that can be found here can also be hunted with other methods with better odds. From here on out, we only have a few Pokemon left on the list, and these ones can only be hunted at full odds with no way of increasing the chance of a shiny. And interestingly, more than half of these can be found in Sinnoh. Just like the Swords of Justice, the Regis don't appear inside the Dynamax lair. Regirock, Regice and Registeel have their own separate temples, along with the newly introduced Regieleki and Regidrago, while Regigigas can only be faced in a unique Dynamax battle if you have the other 5 Regis in your party. Due to how Dynamax raids and static encounters work, none of these benefit from the shiny charm, making them all 1 in 4096. The same goes for the Regirock, Regice and Registeel in Ramanas Park, and the Regigigas in Snowpoint Temple. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl also allow you to hunt for 3 of the 4 Sinnoh mythical Pokemon, Darkrai, Shaymin and Arceus, which are shiny locked encounters in Asui. Darkrai and Shaymin are also only available if you downloaded their mystery gifts in 2022, but Arceus can still be encountered at Spear Pillar if you have a completed Pokédex in Legends Arceus. Last of all, there are also 4 non-legendary Pokemon that made it into this tier. By virtue of being absent from ZA, not found in Outbreaks or the PokeRadar, not being able to produce eggs, and not even appearing anywhere in the wild, the Galarian fossils are some of the only Pokemon that cannot benefit from any increased shiny odds whatsoever, as they can only be obtained from Caralis at the full shiny odds of 1 in 4096. But what if I told you there was a tier even further beyond full odds? Originally, the chance of finding a shiny Pokemon was 1 in 8192. This was then halved in X and Y to 4096, and has been that way ever since. But when Fire Red and Leaf Green were re-released on the Switch this year, those odds were left unchanged. These games also have no methods whatsoever of increasing your shiny odds. No chains, no sandwiches, no Masuda method, nothing. And while every Pokemon in the base game of Fire Red and Leaf Green has already been accounted for in other Switch games with better shiny odds, there is one exception left: the Gen 3 mythical Deoxys. As of right now, Deoxys cannot be obtained anywhere else on the Switch. The last time it was even given out as a mystery gift was in 2024, and that was only in Japan and South Korea. This encounter was also originally a mystery gift event on the original Game Boy Advance, but the remake quietly enables this event after you beat the Elite Four for the first time, allowing you to encounter Deoxys on Birth Island. And unlike the encounter in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, this one isn't shiny locked either. So, there you have it. Deoxys is the undisputed rarest shiny that you can hunt on the Nintendo Switch, at least on a per encounter basis. As of writing, there's no official word on Switch ports for Ruby, Sapphire and Emerald yet, but if they do get released, I think there's a good chance that Emerald will have the old C-Map event, which would also allow you to shiny hunt Mew at the same odds. As for everything else on this list, remember that encounter odds aren't everything, and a method with lower shiny odds might actually be better if the encounters are faster. When I made my first version of this video, it was just to satisfy my curiosity about what shiny was the rarest or most common based on average encounters. But seeing how many people were using it as a resource for shiny hunting inspired me to make an updated version geared more towards that, and hopefully this video can inspire you to pick up a new shiny hunt too, or try out a method you've never done before. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see the inevitable update for Generation 10, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it, and likes and comments are always appreciated to help the channel.
That was brilliant, Candle, for me. Very much enjoyed.